So he says he feels like there's going to be a good catalyst for Jasmy partnerships and business growth. Japan's economy depends on good business and trade relationships. Japan itself is not a country with much natural resources, but they depend heavily on trade and exchange of valuables. Now, I've seen some of you guys from the Jasmy community, like you'll tag me, and I welcome it. And on top of that, you'll associate some key findings with Jasmy and also put SBI obviously into the mix. And as we know, when it comes to SBI, XDC stands out. We have a whole catered news section tonight about XDC later into the show. But I would agree with this. They depend heavily on trade and, exchange of valuables, all these crazy key dates, January 24th through the 25th, 2024. Again, we're in 2024. Who doesn't know that by now? But there's a lot of specific things to get into, right? I mean, if you could, see this for yourself, I'm going to double check my settings. And I think you do. Yes, you do see this. So where is he going with this, right? Well, he states, here's another event that could be good for Jasmy. It will be based basically in Turkey. Turkey and Japan have exceptional relationship and friendship. Right, they do. In the early days of this project, there were many investors, of course, from Turkey. How are my Turkish Jasmy friends feeling about the future? And the key date that he highlights is what? It's July 4th through 7th, 2024, the Blockchain Expo, blockchain conference in Istanbul, Turkey. We know that's the capital and so on. And basically, I don't think any of this is a nothing burger at all. And the way I look at it is, I wanted to get more into some of the specifics. Now, there's a key new partnership that was mentioned, of course, during the time I was away. And some of you guys, of course, know about this new partnership. But it's not just any specific partnership that's not significant. Now, there's other content creators that have covered this. I don't know if enough of them actually took more of a deep dive into this. So check this out. I'm going to start things off by collaborating, once again, briefly, with the one and only Menelagor. So shout out to him. But basically speaking, there's some key things I want to mention in regards to the notes. And, basically speaking, it's this whole thing about Japan itself. Apologize, a little bit of a change of the weather here in the Phoenix area, but let's get into it. So in the notes from Menelagor, he talks about specifically about the history. All right. This is very, very interesting. It's about Japan-U.S. cooperation at the time that there was no other things involved in regards to this specifically. Just hear me out on this. It's not a lot, but hear me out on this. He has some research that talks about chemical bank history of chemical banking corporations, its relations with Japanese banks and corporations. Now, you got to like the idea. They gave you a little intro about this whole thing of Jasmy and Ripple a while back. And we stated that through Interledger, you can get something actually going on. And a lot more people need to take Jasmy more seriously when it comes to cross-border payments, because whether they like it or not, there is a storm that's going to come. But how do we really know this? Well, it comes all the way back from the idea of a chemical bank history of these particular corporations and its relations to Japanese banks, or specifically their companies. Now, to hear this out, Chemical Banking Corporation was a former American bank holding company that merged with the Chase Manhattan Corporation in 1961. As we know, JFK came into office in 1961. Before that, it was the result of a 1991 merger between Chemical New York Corporation and Manufacturer Hanover Corporation. Two of, listen to this, the largest U.S. bank mergers at that time. Now, Chemical New York Corporation was the holding company of Chemical Bank, which was founded all the way back in 1824. Listen to this. It was a division of the New York Chemical Manufacturing Company. The company, or I should say the chemical business, was dropped, of course, in 1832. I know it sounds nuts. And the bank became a state chartered institution in 1842. Now, you may be thinking, hey, this is way too long. I don't need a history lesson on all this. Hear me out. Chemical Bank grew steadily through the 19th and 20th centuries, expanding its domestic and international operations, acquiring other banks such as Texas Commerce Bank shares in 1987, Manufacturers Hanover Corporation was the holding company of Manufacturers Hanover Trust Company. They, of course, formed in 1961 by the merger of Manufacturers Trust Company and Hanover Bank. Manufacturers Trust Company was established in 1905 as a subsidiary of Central Trust Company of New York, and Hanover Bank was founded in 1851 as the German American Bank. Now, there's manufacturers involved in all this, and it's Hanover Trust Company that grew through mergers, acquisitions. They became one of the largest banks in New York and also the world. Chemical Banking Corporation has several relations with what? Japanese banks. Now, just hear this out a little bit more. And also the companies over many years. Now, here's an example. In 1989, they basically formed a joint venture with Mitsubishi Bank. Now, how many times have we been talking about Mitsubishi Bank and Jasmy? If I have not gained your attention yet or grabbed it, there's more. That at the time was Japan's largest bank, and they provided corporate finance services in Japan and the United States. Now, fast forward to 1990. It sold a 4.9% stake to Industrial Bank of Japan, another major Japanese bank, for $200 million. There's more. In 1992, it agreed to sell 50% interest in Daiichi Kanyu Bank of California, which is a retail banking subsidiary to his Japanese partner, Daiichi Kanyu Bank. And in 1994, it signed a strategic alliance with Sumitomo Bank, which is one of Japan's leading banks, to cooperate in various areas such as management, securities, and even trade finance. Trade finance. Don't you love how we are introducing all this to you? Listen to this for a second. For one, the Chemical Banking Corporation merger acquisition and rebranding happened. Number two, the Chemical Banking Corporation company history went along with that. And then also the Mitsubishi Venture sold stakes to Japan. And there's a report from the New York Times, but check this out for a second. It states that basically there was a commitment in regards to an agenda, and it involves Sony UNOPS. Now, some of you guys in the Jasmy community have been dropping this here and there. Some of you guys from the Reddit community have been dropping some of this research here and there. And if this rings a bell, it's a rabbit hole and it's a crazy deep dive nonetheless. And I'm not going to get fully into this, maybe at another date when we get more research, but I want to mention this, and that is there's layers of plans with different routes that are all gamed out. Basically, it's like this. The end goal is always the same. Like how we always mentioned the whole thing of Society 5.0 and smart cities. Just because we don't agree with it here in the Western world doesn't mean it's not a realistic thing going on in the Far East. Now, Menelaguar is basically stating that he is calling global industrialists. And I know some of this stuff sounds spooky and crazy, but listen to this for a second. A lot of us feel as though the UN is totally corrupt, but they have become the front and one of the major mechanisms for the basically this crazy thing of power and the acquisition of assets. Now, when we get more into this partnership, key thing here, especially for Jasmy, is real world assets. How many times have you heard me, when it comes to quant, talk about RWA, real world assets, right? Maybe I talk your ear off about it. When we had Will Fix on the show as a guest and so on, and we collaborate and so on, we're talking about real world assets, right? So we're talking about the tokenization of real world assets. So again, think about this for a second, and we'll give you a nice little segue to this next part. I swear it's all going to make sense. But the point is this, okay? It's this whole thing of like making no mistake, human population is an asset as a workforce, and its importance is dwindling year by year. Look at the whole thing going on with Japan. Their overall population dwindling year by year. The European Union was the test bed. What would people tolerate? The free flow of population? Think about how that's worded. You know how we're always talking about data free flow with trust? How do corporations operate in this environment? What structure do the bureaucrats need to rule? What do you need to do to increase surveillance of the population? Maybe get the Internet of Things involved. Now, you may not agree with all the doom and gloom that we're talking about here. But if anything, you could understand the value of what's behind it. If Jasmy is everywhere when it comes to IoT, and now it's branching into the whole thing of finance democracy, what more added value can you get? How do you get all these people to accept these things? And most of all, when will populations figure out that quote unquote governments are not there to protect them or be there for their own benefit? When will people realize that they are there for the benefit of bureaucracy and industrialists who control specifically that, the state? What happens when you introduce external populations through migration and to the quote unquote test bed? How do you control the response, so on and so forth, on and on? I could talk your ear off. But listen to this for a second, again, from Menelagwar. He says that 85 to 90% of the spendable wealth in the world belong to the group of these specific people, along with all the assets and specific resources. There are white hats and, of course, black hats in the world. The black hats have to utilize many tools to achieve their specific goals. And for a very long time, they have use effective communication such as propaganda and culture to pre-fame the specific populations. And of course, Menelagwar believes that it is possible almost everything is scripted. And I used to not be a person that used to believe in this stuff. I remember back in early 2000s, I thought it was cuckoo to talk about CBDCs and stuff like that. But my best friend Mike Wool was talking about this long before everybody else. And of course, I had to give him an apology. I was like, you were right. You were spot on some of that stuff. But in regards to back to the whole thing of Menelagwar, he states that the tech is developed to achieve an endpoint. Roadblocks are identified and plans are developed, then specifically executed to remove them and released when it's needed. Is it the greatest trick, basically, the devil ever pulled? I know it sounds crazy. As we know, when it comes to CBDCs, they can be used for good or bad. Now let's get back onto the topic about this, because if anything, if we look at the pioneers from Japan, they have worked with this whole thing since 1980 to 1995 in regards to cryptography. And you're going to get top names from Japan whose tech is basically in every crypto related type thing. We're not going to go more further into this until the next time. But nonetheless, here we go. I'm going to show you this key partnership and why I want you guys to pay attention to this, especially if you hold Jasmy. So here it is, straight from this particular tweet, or actually medium, I should say. And it's regards to Neopin. I'm going to show this a way that you can see it. Here it is. So Neopin, you guys that follow Jasmy real closely already know about this. I apologize if I'm having connection problems. There's a storm that's really bad outside, and I can hear all the crazy wind, so bear with me. Neopin, what's this all about? Well, it states on this medium that they partnered with Jasmy, and it says specifically ex-Sony executives venture company to elevate global blockchain presence with innovative what? Yeah, you better believe it. I have caught your attention. Real world asset products grounded in data assetization. Now, that was a nice little segue to give you an idea about all this. So sometimes you just need to know your history, right? Well, this, of course, was posted originally on December 11th. And, there was a time I wanted to cover this. Obviously, I haven't been with you guys since the 13th, but I saw some of the stuff and I was like, well, I'll just jump into it and get into it with you guys next time. Obviously, with the whole thing of me having a break with personal matters because of my dad's passing, got in the way. But some of your key takeaways, like I said, Jasmy, an ex-Sony and also ex-Sony executives venture company, includes many key personnel, obviously with origins in Sony, no kidding. Establishing a prominent position in Japan, Jasmy combines, of course, Internet of Things and blockchain in his business ventures. But this part about Neopin and Jasmy plan to jointly pioneer real-world assets and STO businesses related to Jasmy's data assetization. This is one of the key highlights that was mentioned, obviously, in the middle of last month. But it's not that long ago. In reality, it's only a few weeks ago. So who's Neopin? Well, I'm not going to read all this verbatim, but basically they are a leading global centralized DeFi protocol based in Singapore. Kind of sounds like it's, like one extreme to the other. But they announced back then a significant milestone by signing a memorandum of understanding, which is called MOU, with, of course, Jasmy. Like it says, venture company ex-Sony executives. We know the deal. But getting into this, they are going to leverage specifically these innovative capabilities of Jasmy in the IoT blockchain sector. My key takeaway for you guys is this. You ever notice out of the woodwork, there's a lot of things happening? Remember all that time people were complaining from the community, not enough happening. I always said to everybody in the community, watch out for things like that because it means that they are building. Just because you don't see things going on in regards to us in retail, it doesn't mean nothing's going on. And if anything, the perfect example of that is what? XDC. And we'll have some coverage about that. Gives you a little history about Jasmy, GAFA. We're not going to get into that, but what I want to get back into is this in regards to Neopin. Pioneer of real-world asset, RWA, and security token offering. Again, back to the whole thing of Menelagar. He was mentioned the history, the pioneers, if you will, right? That's why he mentioned that. So these businesses jointly came involved in relation to Jasmy's data assetization, the launch of DeFi products within a Neopin, utilizing virtual assets, including Neopin token, which is NPT. I'll have to learn more about that, I'll be honest. And of course, Jasmy coin itself. Now, it states to activate new mainnet business through Neopin's participation as a node validator. How cool is that? We talk about, can Jasmy work with other projects to expand its ecosystem and whatnot? What a perfect example to finally give you some of that utility in motion. And what have we seen within the last few weeks? Anything, you saw a little bit of a surge in regards to Jasmy's price. Now, I will basically assert that more towards BTC and Ethereum doing well, but this definitely didn't hurt anything. Look what it also states, actively promote mutual networking for global ecosystem expansion, of course, into Japan, Korea, Middle East, and beyond. And last but not least, this strategic partnership not only aligns Neopin with, of course, Jasmy, a well-established player, right? But in Japan specifically, it signifies Neopin's concerted effort to expand its footprint in the Japanese market. Since declaring its entry into the Japanese market last August, Neopin specifically has been actively targeting opportunities arising from Japan's Web3 promotion policies, anticipating increased demand for DeFi and wallet services within the country. And what is Jasmy also looking to do? They're creating that super wallet. Everything is aligning with the whole concept of the white paper. And let's be honest, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but most of us don't read white papers. And if anything, some of us read light papers and don't even do that. But all the FUD that happened in the past in regards to, oh, I don't like this going on, all this V2 talk and so on. Hey, I don't like V2s either. I don't like it when it comes to meme token garbage. But I definitely like that Jasmy stuck to the guns and they kept the promises in regards to that white paper. Whether we have big influencers are on par with it and saying that Jasmy's white paper is garbage, whatever you want to call it, they stuck to the plan and that roadmap. Look at this quote for a second before we get into another key thing. Ethan Kim, CEO of Neopin, expressed confidence in the collaboration. I'm feeling a lot of confidence too. Stating, quote, together with Jasmy, will introduce DeFi products related to real-world assets. This is so darn cool because if anything, what have we also been seeing lately when it comes to some of the big institutional bigwigs? Notice that BlackRock's very own Larry Fink has put a lot of emphasis when it comes to real-world assets and to tokenize that. So to have Jasmy, which a lot of people, maybe even the majority of the population still have not taken seriously enough, they just don't fully understand the bigger picture. The bigger picture is just like it says, introducing DeFi products related to RWA and STO based on data assetization, leading the global real world asset market. Not just being part of it, leading it. And to have Jasmy be the quote unquote the Bitcoin of Japan, does that not sound bullish to you? Because it definitely does to me. Listen to this for a second. They plan to actively launch device services and products to increase their market share in Japan. That's utility in motion. This includes adding Japan's language support to Neopin app within this year and further strengthening partnerships with promising blockchain companies in Japan. Would be better than to maybe partner with one like Jasmy? Maybe they do A star. You get the point. I think you do. Hara has a quote here as well. And we're going to get into that. Hara stated in regards to this, quote, "We look forward to developing our new challenge of blockchain with Neopin, which has a proven track record in the Korean market. We will mutually cooperate to build a community, implement use cases, and develop the market." Your key takeaway is this. Backtrack to the whole talk of what we had from My Media, our fellow brother across the pond, we talked about with Turkey. Now also enter into the whole thing of South Korea. So Jasmy is positioned to not just focus on Japan, but all these strategic alliances all over the place. More examples of utility in motion. Now, I'm going to stop the share here for a second. I will get back in the comments in just a moment. But one of your key takeaways in conclusion, all right, this is from my notes, is this. What connection other than Genki Oda, that I always talk about all the time, does Jasmy have, of course, with SBI Japan? Because, let's face it, it's always mentioned. It's a great question. Beyond the shared connection of Genki Oda as an advisor, Jasmy and SBI Japan have, of course, several other links. So let's get into this for just a brief moment. SBI NFT. What is that all about? Well, Jasmy has announced a series of partnerships with SBI NFT. Were you aware of that? A subsidiary of SBI Holdings focusing on areas like, and here's the real juicy stuff, real world asset tokenization and STO security token offering. Yes, boil it, mash it, stick in the stew. I haven't said that in a while. Collaborating on projects utilizing Jasmy's data monetization. Oh, God, yes. Platform for assetization and STOs. Do you love how this is all connected? Because when you got SBI Japan on board, right, it all makes sense. DeFi, exploring the development of DeFi products. How? With Neopin. Of course, we know blockchain platform, both companies, Neopin and Jasmy, using crypto assets, as in the actual coins, tokens, Jasmy and Neopin. And then on top of it, a network expansion, collaborating together on mutual networking to promote the global blockchain ecosystem, not just in Japan, but also Korea and, of course, the Middle East. So we're not just having this whole concept like some people have fudded about, oh, Jasmy's just focused in Japan. They're not doing anything else. Give me a break. How about this for a second? Back to the whole last topic of my last video, Bitcoin in Japan. For one, SBI Holdings acquired, as we know, Bitcoin. And of course, we know that that is a particular exchange that lists and supports trading, of course, for Jasmy, further connecting the two entities through, of course, the specific trading platform. Last, what about investment? Well, Neopin, right? Because we're talking about the partnership. They have, they have, of course, I'm getting ahead of myself, partnered with SBI NFT on other projects. So they've already been there. They've already done that. Also announced a memorandum of understanding of all this, which is called MOU, with, of course, Jasmy, like I point out, suggesting potential future investment or collaboration ventures. Now, both projects, Neopin and Jasmy, have shared interests. Both are, of course, blockchain and also have digital assets. Both Jasmy and SBI Japan are also, of course, active players, of course, in the blockchain and digital asset space. And they, of course, both share an interest in promoting adoption and development. Again, more adoption tells me there's going to be more of that utility in motion. What about financial innovation? Listen to this for a second. Both entities explore innovative financial solutions through blockchain tech, like DeFi and asset tokenization, and they are both focused on it. Now, in regards to the whole thing of Genki Oda, while Genki Oda serves as a bridge connection, like always, in regards to the connection between Jasmy and SBI, he extends far much more beyond that. He encompasses the whole ongoing partnerships and the potential investments and shared interests in the evolving blockchain landscape. Now, this is all worth pointing out, and of course, more of this could evolve over time. But for me personally, I think it is really, really something else to finally see some of the talk that we shared about many months ago or a year ago about all the what ifs, and now starting to see things that is no longer what if, it is now going from speculation to confirmation. One last thing I want to get into. I want to give a shout out to Dip Metaverse in regards to this. This is straight from Mr. Dip. And basically speaking, here it is. And this is just kind of something to, give you a little alleviation of some of those fears that you might have had maybe recently. A lot of us have seen our portfolios do well. But look what is mentioned here from Mr. Dip Metaverse. He states, to all of those flooding Jasmy, and there's quite a few still, even yet, especially today with a pullback because the flooders just don't understand the concept of BTC and Ethereum dominance. But yes, all those flooding Jasmy by saying Jasmy management website has nothing to do with the coin. Here you go. Even to some influencers, right? Who put a lot of focus on their videos on this negative aspect. The screenshot below from Jasmy management website mentions one of the team's priorities was getting listed on what? Both Japanese and overseas crypto exchanges. It's always been on the website if you just take more of a further look. There's the link. You guys can see it for yourself, jasmy.co.jp/en_company.html. What's the screenshot state? Key persons. Following last year's realization of the commercialization structure and listing on domestic and international cryptocurrency exchanges, Jasmy will strengthen its management structure to further promote the democratization of course, that information. That's their main utility layer, if you will. So with that said, the way I look at it is like this. I've always stated this numerous times. Know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%.